Hi there and Happy New Year for 2026. I'm Hilary and this is a Learn Through Listening podcast. We focus on helping you to speak English fluently by listening to interesting podcast topics. Today, let's have a look at what were the most popular topics in 2025. Which podcasts and episodes did you enjoy the most? These are the ones that you like best. And of course, the video podcasts are all still available on our website, adeptenglish.com. Just go to lessons. So some of these are free, some of these are subscription. But if you've not listened to us before, you're about to discover what a variety of topics, what a lot of different subjects we cover while you're doing your English language learning. It all helps to keep you listening for longer so that the English part of your brain benefits, has a great advantage, if you like. The more English language listening you do, the better your understanding and speaking. It really works. So, what were the best video podcasts and subscription episodes from last year? Video podcast 813. This was one of your favourite podcast episodes. It went out in June 2025 and its title, Slow News in Just 10 Minutes. We'd love to know if it was the promise of just 10 minutes that made this one so popular. But you always enjoy podcasts where I cover 2 or 3 news stories. So this podcast covered a news story about a discovery made by scientists at University College London. The first bacteria that we meet when we are newborns determines quite a lot about our health, certainly for the first 5 years, it seems. So the scientists from UCL analysed the bacteria from over 1,000 newborn babies, looked at whether it was good bacteria or bad bacteria, and then they tracked the baby's health for 5 years. The results were pretty incredible. Good bacteria meant, for example, half the number of visits to hospital for lung disease in the first 5 years of life. This news story was asking the question, should we actually give babies good bacteria when they're first born? Another part of this video podcast, 813, asked, should police dogs be given pensions when they retire? A pension, pension, means the money saved up for retirement, for when you're too old to work. And there was concern in this article about police dogs who have given faithful service are sometimes retired with injuries. That means big vet's bills for some. The vet, V-E-T, is the animal doctor. If a retiring police dog came with a pension, these expenses would be covered and people would be more likely to take retired police dogs on as pets. The last story in this podcast was about an elephant raiding a shop in Thailand. This happened in Nakhon Ratchasima province, and the elephant ate 9 bags of sweet rice crackers, a sandwich, and some dried bananas. When he'd finished his snack, the elephant simply reversed. To reverse means to go backwards. He reversed out of the shop. The owner of the shop videoed it all, and there was just a little damage to the roof of the shop. Next one. A very popular subscription episode this year was number 74. You liked this one because it was all about going to the British pub. P-U-B. So this episode gave you lots of vocabulary and talked about what you can expect in a pub. You learned expressions like draft beer. That means beer that comes out of a tap. And how you buy it in pints. That's an old British measurement, not part of the European metric system. And do you know the name of the beer glass that holds a pint that has a handle? You may. It's called a jar. So in this episode, I talked about beer and lager and Guinness and stout. as well as cider and shandy, all drinks you might have at the British pub. I also talked a bit about pub sports, darts, dominoes, and pool. I also told you why the lights might flicker in a pub late in the evening. That's because of something called last orders. If you're ever planning to visit a British pub, this episode number 74 is a must listen. Back to video podcast now, number 812. You like this one, and with good reason. The title was Improve Your English, Why Listening Helps You Speak. It makes sense that this one was popular because it explains how to use adept English for your English language practice. It explains how it works, how to do it. And if you can understand English quite well, but you're not yet speaking English, then the answers are all in this video. I explain why listening is the most important activity for intermediate language learners, even if speaking and having conversations in English is your goal. I also direct you towards the 7 rules of adept English. What do I hear you say? You haven't yet done our free course? What are you waiting for? You can go and do that now. If you haven't done this free course, you are missing out. If you want to learn English, go and do this course and understand how best to do it. Another popular subscription episode, number 72. Oh dear, this was a bit of a tongue-in-cheek episode. I feel so much more able to speak my mind to our smaller subscription audience. So in this episode number 72, I was celebrating the end of a business called Weight Watchers. Yes, Weight Watchers went bust, stopped operating in 2025. And I was so pleased, over the moon. I explain why in this episode. I'll give you a little taste of it now. I believe that the messages that companies like Weight Watchers put out, all about calorie-counted diets, are very damaging to people. I think there are a lot of people with eating disorders like anorexia nervosa, which have been made worse by companies like Weight Watchers. And if you're overweight and you do want to lose weight, then there are so many other better ways to lose weight, scientifically proven ways that we know about in 2025. So if you don't want to count calories anymore, listen to episode 72. There's a lot of great information in there. You'll be glad you did. Back to our video podcast now, number 793. This went out in January 2025 and it was another popular one. One of the stories I covered was about the Los Angeles wildfires and the destruction left behind. It seems as though climate change again was responsible. Apparently, in that part of California, there is a lot of rain some years, so the plants and the vegetation grow high. And then in other years, there's hardly any rain, so all the plants dry out and become very easy to set on fire. In that podcast, I also talked about Donald Trump wanting to take over Greenland. He hasn't succeeded yet. This is at the end of 2025, beginning of 26. But he was talking about this ambition again recently. On the 22nd of December, he said the US needs Greenland and he appointed a special envoy. An envoy, E-N-V-O-Y, means a special person with a particular mission, someone to represent Donald Trump's interests in Greenland, no doubt. Maybe Donald Trump sees countries as though they're businesses that you can just buy up and take over. I'm not sure it works like that with countries, Donald. And this video podcast number 793 ended on a very upbeat note. And welcome news to me it was. Apparently, if you drink coffee in the morning, and only in the morning, you're less likely to have a heart attack, a problem with your heart, but only in the morning. If you want to find out more, then just watch this video podcast 793 from January 2025. 2 more recommendations for you. First of all, subscription episode 119. You really liked this one. It was called News on the 10,000 Steps. Like many people, I have been convinced of the value of trying to do 10,000 steps in a day, and that this is particularly important if you have a sedentary job like me. Sedentary means you are sitting down a lot of the time when you're working, and that's true for many of us on a computer all day at work. We don't get to walk many steps. So in this subscription episode 119, I was talking about my own habits, my own regime for getting my steps in and trying to make sure I get enough exercise. But I know about the 10,000 steps already, you might say. So what was the news? Well, I looked into research to find out the true number of steps that we need to do each day. The idea of it being 10,000, of course, comes from a random advert in 1964, which was associated with the Tokyo Olympics and the launch of a pedometer. I say random because the 10,000 steps isn't a scientific measure. And I looked into a study in The Lancet. That's an important medical journal in the UK. They were saying 7,000 steps is enough and much more achievable. In this episode, I included the stats, the statistics, the effect on all the major diseases of doing 7,000 steps a day. It's a significant effect too. In fact, 47% less chance of dying of any cause if you do 7,000 steps a day. And I also break it down by disease. That one's really worth a listen. It may indirectly benefit your health. Let's end on a video podcast number 792. Again, this is still available on our website. Go to lessons and type in 792. And again, this was health related. You do like news and health, it seems, and fitness. This one was on superfoods, or rather on foods that some people claim are of super benefit for your health. So I explore recent food news and answer questions like, is eating cheese linked to better mental health in older people? And can eating nuts prevent dementia? I also cover dark chocolate and honey, as well as warning you about certain foods and supplements. Supplements are tablets like vitamin C or vitamin D. You can overdo it, apparently. So there was all that and more in video podcast 792. If you missed any of those, be sure to listen to them several times so that your brain can do its English language learning. Let's look forward to some more great subjects in 2026. What on earth will we cover this year?